Hi, this is Angel Jones. I love great conversations where life's journey is communicated not only through words, but tones and emotions. Explosive expressions that allow you to feel what they felt and learned. A fool learns only from his own mistake, while the wise learn from their own and from those others have made. Thanks for being here with us. Good night, Ginger. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful night?
Doing very well. Just moved a few months ago, so still settling in, but it's getting there.
Oh, and I hope things work out well with your move.
It's settling in.
All right. So tell me, Ginger, which of your talents is responsible for us meeting?
You know, I guess that would be, I don't know if I'd call it a talent, but a new-ish obsession, and that is my love of podcasts. I was a huge podcast fan and listener. I think I began in 2008, and then in 2013, when my favorite book series ever was announced that it was going to become an adaptation for TV, I thought I have to be part. I watched the fandom kind of like react and grow, and I thought there are so many blogs and so many fan things that I'm like, I want to be part of this. It's so exciting, and I've always said I am not a fangirl. I don't fangirl, but you know what? You're not a fanboy, or you're not a fangirl until something happens to make you one, and that can happen. So when it was announced and I saw everything growing and the excitement toward the first season, I approached my sister and said, you know what? I have a little bit of talent with audio, not so much recording, but with editing. I did a little bit of that for my job, and I said, "There's no podcast yet. Let's do it. Let's be the first one." And now, since then, there are a good number, but we were the first. And so I don't know talent, but my involvement in this podcasting production universe for the past 3 years is what brought me to this.
Wow. You definitely light up, right?
I like what?
I said you light up.
I light up. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that is great. So let's deal with that then. Like, where did you get that from? Where did you get that exploration type personality where you make things happen?
I'm a little bit stubborn, or a lot stubborn. And if I had not, I will say though, again, to go back to your question about what talent brought me here, I still don't know if I would say talent, maybe talent now, but at that point it wasn't quite a talent. It was a potential, slight ability, just enough knowledge of something that I could get into trouble. And that was for different positions I've had to do audio editing. And the first thing I ever came across was Audacity. And so I knew I could get that for free and then start editing. So I wasn't afraid to see what a sound file looked like. I wasn't afraid to edit it. I wasn't afraid to do any of the export, import, splice and separate and change formats. And so that part didn't scare me. But if I didn't have that, even that minuscule bit of knowledge that I had at the beginning, I don't think I would have had the courage or even the thought to jump in like we did in the beginning. But so it was a little bit of know-how and a lot of passion, because again, I've been a fan of this series that my sister actually introduced me to. So then of course it only made sense that I invite her along to do this in the late 90s. So it's been almost 20 years. Wow. So that's a long time to build up to be a fan of something and to love books.
It's amazing. It seems as though you are it was like passion, but at the same time it was desperation, and but it was balanced.
A little bit. Yeah, I think so. And the funny thing is that again, it's not just okay. There's a third part of it too. you can have audio editing experience, but not even know what a podcast is. And this is especially back, 3 years ago, before Serial and before a lot of the more recent boom in podcasts. And I know the numbers are growing every year, not just in listenership, people actually knowing what the word means and who can identify with what it is or who have listened to one. Back in 2008, I don't even know how. No one I knew what a podcast was. I stumbled upon them somehow, but I became a fan, and I just could not get enough of this and of them. And so I've been a singer, and I was trained in singing, and so I've always been, on stage somehow, performing somehow, at least growing up, and that. Something like a podcast gives you, although it's not a performance, it could be, gives you like a type of stage, if you will. It gives you control over something that, and you can do it from your home, you can do it in your PJs, and it's as good as you make it, and I'm not saying people are doing it badly, but I guess I won't say the negative side of it. The positive side is it's as good as you can make it. Yeah. And so after becoming so interested in them and knowing what they were, and having like a pretty wide range of things that I listened to, that was the third component. So there was the series itself that was being adapted. There was my little bit of technology know-how of how to edit audio, and then knowing what a podcast was, and that I had always thought somehow, I don't know why, I always thought someday I'd like to do a podcast. I don't know what about, I don't know how, I don't know what. But and so like these three things kind of came together in the summer of 2013, and I was kind of scared. I was like, I can't believe I'm going to do this. But I asked my sister, and she's like, sure. I have no idea what in the hell that is, but sure. So poor thing got involved.
So much of life is like that, right? You started, Absolutely. You just started, and I mean, you've built momentum in starting, and you learn as you go along, right? And I mean, so much of life is that, as scary as it may seem. But I'm glad you did it, and now you're doing it. You're being interviewed on a podcast and having a conversation about podcasting.
It is. I know. It gets a little meta each time we speak with someone about this kind of stuff.
All right, so let's switch it up. Let's explain to our amazing audience exactly what you've done, just to connect things together. You've created a podcast,
yes,
called the Outlander, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. It's the Outlander Podcast, and it was the first one. There are now a lot of fan podcasts, as well as a podcast done by people in production. The showrunner does one during the season. But we were the first one and started a year before production, a year before the show started.
So what is it about? Like, what's the fun in the Outlander Podcast?
Well, the Outlander Podcast follows even though it was started because the book series was being adapted for television, we quickly realized we have a year or so before the show comes on TV. So what are we going to do with the podcast for a year? So we started doing a read along. So we basically talk about the first book. It's a series of 8 books at this point. We talk about the first book chapter by chapter, and just before series or season 1 starts. And season 1 is about book 1, follows book 1. So then after that, we do book 2, and then season 2. So we quickly found that's kind of our niche, or kind of our that's how we fill the content. And so, but what the series is about is basically a woman named Claire Randall is a combat nurse in World War II. After the end of the war, she is reunited with her husband for their second honeymoon. They got married before the war and haven't seen each other much. And this is in post World War II Britain. And they go on a second honeymoon in Scotland. And while there, she goes to a circle of standing stones and is mysteriously transported through time back 202 years. So 202 or 203, I think it's 202. Anyway, 200 years. And it's how she's stuck, and she spends time trying to get out. But basically the first book, she meets a lot of people, of course, and you find out a lot about 18th century Scotland. And it's a crazy, awesome ride.
Wow. I'm inspired to go look.
You should. You absolutely should.
Wow.
But the cool thing is, because we follow the books off season and we follow the show during the season, we've done so much. We've traveled to Scotland. We've been press at San Diego Comic-Con. We've had the good fortune of interviewing composers, actors, directors, writers. It has been, I'm telling you, this is the thing that you, at least for myself, I can't speak for anyone else. This is the kind of stuff that we didn't even think of day one. We just started it. We hoped our parents listened, and that's it. We thought, oh, well, mom and dad got to listen. They have to, right? They have to love us. I think they listened to like one episode, and then they're like, oh, yeah, I'll listen to it. Yeah. Well, it's 166 episodes in, and yeah, they're not listening.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I think my mother listened to my podcast, and sometimes I ask her, hey, do you listen to it? And she says, I'm going to listen to that,
Oh yeah, they have the best intentions.
Yeah, they do.
But
they do.
Yeah.
But I love what you've done. I love the fact that you came on to have a conversation, and I mean, like what you've said already is pretty inspirational. It is. I'm telling you, it is. You've definitely switched up my format. I'll tell you that.
I'm so sorry.
But it's good. So, Ginger.
Okay.
Let me now invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. What is your earliest childhood memory?
That's funny you mention water. Now, I have had discussions with my parents whether or not this is actually my memory or it's something I've created as a memory because they've told me about this incident or told me what they used to do, and thus I've made it my own. So it could be a false memory, but whether it's mine or they're telling me, it is a correct thing. It actually did happen. My earliest memory, I believe, is when I was very young, before I would walk. I walked at 8 months old. I took my first steps at 8 months old. So I was very young. So at least 8, if not 7 months old. And probably a few months old. My parents, my mom would stand on the edge of the pool. They had a pool. My dad would be in the water. And my mom would take me and not like, she wouldn't throw me, but she would gently drop me and my dad would catch me. And then he would take me above the water and then take me underwater and then bring me back up. So they were trying to basically waterproof me. I wasn't going to swim that early, obviously, but they wanted from an early age to get me used to the water and used to the pool. And the funny thing is, because again, you mentioned water and I just did again, that fast forward, and yes, and obviously, ironically, I'm also in California. But speaking of beaches and water, but then 8 years later, I became a competitive swimmer. So it's just funny, this water theme. But so that's my earliest memory that I believe is mine.
It's amazing, right? Wow. Wow. So did they swim? Well, yes, obviously your father did swim, right?
Well, they both are not afraid of the water, but neither of them are actually very strong swimmers. My dad can swim. My mom's not very comfortable in the water, but my dad, like he can tread water. Yeah, no, that's not true. He can swim, but he's not. And he would go out and try and rescue you if something happened, but he is not. He was never trained as a swimmer.
Not like he wasn't good as you.
Well, I mean, I trained for 8 years, so I swam for 12 months a year, not just in the summertime. So middle of winter, we were swimming. But no, but he likes the water though. He loves the water.
That is intriguing. You're different. So okay, if we fast forward to when you're 12, with Ginger, what was your favorite song?
Oh my gosh, 12. Oh, that's hard. Okay, hold on. What year was that? 10 was, that was just after, oh my gosh, I don't want to age myself. When I was between the ages of 10 and 12, it was probably something from, I don't know, maybe something from Dirty Dancing? Like, I've Had the Time of My Life, something like that. But that soundtrack was my favorite. I listened to that on repeat.
right, Ginger, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. Yes or no? Ginger, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
That's a very interesting question. Well, I cross-train with my sister, who's the co-host. I am the producer, but she is a co-host. So I do cross-train with her a little bit, but at this point, there is no one. Let's just say my succession planning is not very good.
As yet.
You're very positive. I like that. As yet, exactly.
Are you married?
I am not.
Do you have children?
I do not. I'm a single mom of 2 cats.
There we go. They register. Do you believe in God?
I absolutely do.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
I do.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
I can't.
How about 3 hours a week?
If I'm lucky, maybe.
Okay. How about screen time?
That's a problem. Because we're so big in we have a social media presence, to keep, not even just to publish our shows, but also to keep in touch with our fans, our listeners, and then of course the shows that we like. But between most of the screen time would probably be social media, and then of course editing and anything I had to do with the computer for the show. But I don't even know a number. I mean, it's embarrassing. I don't even want to guess.
There's a friend of mine. He's on an online community. He put up out there. He said that he installed this app, right, that monitors how often, and he said he left it there and he forgot about it. And 10 days after, he just bounced up on it again. And he said the time he was on, he said he needs an accountability partner because it's ridiculous when he saw the results.
I believe it. As a matter of fact, I spend my day at work, like a lot of people do, in front of a computer, basically 8 hours a day. And so after that, the last thing I want to do is use my computer at home. But what you have reminded me, and what a lot of people don't necessarily consider, is that it's not just computers, right? It's your phone, it's your iPad, it's anything with a screen, your TV, everything. So it's important to consider that in that tally as well. And mine is embarrassing, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm going to be working on it as well, Hey, Ginger, this was a great pleasure. I love that you spun things around and really loved your energy. You're definitely you. You're definitely unique, as everyone that has passed through on this podcast. You're a different unique, though. You're the type of unique, before I end, that, someone drops in a pool, carries underwater, then they come back up. I love it. Ginger, thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Thank you so much, Angel. It's been my pleasure.
Amazing audience. Before you leave, there's one person I'd like to introduce you to, Amanda Jones. She is my wife, and her passion is to educate, encourage, and empower.
Hi, I'm Amanda Jones, and I'm a registered nurse. Do you or someone you know have diabetes? According to the International Diabetes Federation, in 2015 worldwide, 415 million people were living with diabetes. Just as that figure is overwhelming, so too can the effects of diabetes be. So, to help simplify diabetes for both adult and child, I've used rhymes in my books, The ABCs of Diabetes for Children and Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes. At its simplest, rhymes help us to remember. If you, a child or friend, want an easy, reader-friendly way to know about diabetes, then get a copy of these books. For more details, you can go to poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.